So today we're putting in some gauges that have been sitting in my garage for 6 months. Not on this car, but on the Patrol. So like I said before, I've been putting this off for a while, not really too sure why, but it's Saturday morning, it's cold, and we're gonna get stuck in. So Patrol Apart was having a sale while I was looking through their website, and I thought I might pick something up. So I decided to get a gauges kit basically from them. So it's a VDO kit. So I got VDO EGT gauge, boost gauge. I got the pillar pod as well. They do different ones for like the color of your interior. So that's my one there, that cream color. And then with that also comes like all your bits and pieces. So for the EGT gauge, you got the probe obviously that goes in the exhaust. Just little connectors, bits and pieces. The bung that I actually have to weld in because my exhaust doesn't have a spot for it. Just extra wiring. And then for the boost gauge, that's just the air line for it. I did have to get this off the Tilex website, that was separate. I'll show you where I'm gonna put that. And this is just some mounting stuff and other bits and pieces. And also for the wiring, like I've done on my Navara, I'm just gonna be using T-taps, basically just piggybacking off the fuses that are already inside to get power to the gauges. So first things first, I'm gonna rip off this cover so that I can look at putting the boost adapter underneath here and then running my boost line, probably that way. When you're not tall, this is how you have to work in your car. So the way I've seen people do it is that little block, you take that off, we'll put this underneath that and then have our little barb coming out, and then that'll be our boost reference for our gauge. So we're about 3 minutes in and I've already come across the first issue, so we're going good. Went to go fit the boost adapter for the map sensor, and I've realized that this barb that comes with here from Tilex isn't the size for this hose. So the VDO hose doesn't match the Tilex boost adapter barb, and then this is the barb that VDO gives you, and then that isn't the right thread to go into the adapter. So a little bit of a mess. So what I'm going to do is hop to Supercheap and get a barb that fits this adapter and that fits this original hose from VDO, so that I can use all the VDO stuff and just get rid of the Tilex barb altogether. So I ended up managing to screw the VDO side onto the Tilex adapter with a bit of persuasion, I'd say, but it's on there now and I don't think it should leak. If it does, I'll probably just retap the threads, but it seems to have gone in basically as much as the standard one did before, so should be good to go. But before I go and put this on, put the airline on the ends of there, I actually want to start on the inside of the car because I reckon it'll be much easier to run down this thing and down there and through the firewall than trying to come up it. So I'm just going to take the handle off. This trim just comes off once you take this little bit of the door trim off as well, and then I'll be able to run my airline down under here, and it might be a little bit hard to see, but there is a grommet down in there, and that's where I'll be running the airline to. So I've ran the airline down there, got all this trim off here, and went through. There's actually a little grommet. Hopefully you guys can see that. So there's that little grommet there. I actually ended up drilling that out and then just putting a bit of Cori around it to protect the airline. And I guess you could run other cables through there if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna run the airline through there. And then a bit hard to see, but it does just pop up from underneath that red cable. And then I'm probably gonna run it across. I'm thinking of trying to run it underneath here so that it's actually hidden when you put the cover back on, and then just running it right to that spot there. Finished this bit up now, just went around and I just zip tied it under there so it's pretty hidden when you put the cover on, and it just comes down there and goes down into the grommet. The only thing I did notice was that when you put the cover back on, the actual like where the Nissan logo is actually really presses down on this map sensor, so I think I'm just gonna have to either get longer bolts for these front two. I'll probably just leave them out for now, but in the future I'll just get longer ones and just pack washers underneath them so that it doesn't put pressure on here, because I really don't want to break that. I know this wiring's way too big for what we're running, but that's all I had. So I've just done 2 spade terminals on each end, and I've just done that to an I terminal so I can ground it. So that's my ground loom, and then my power loom, my positive, 2 spade terminals on this end as well. And then I ran out of cable, so I just joined it into one bigger cable, and then that's gone to my T-tap. And then from there I've found ignition power, which is where the 15 amp fuse is, and then we're just running 10 amp fuse for the gauges. That was the 15 amp slot I just took out from there. So I've just dummy fitted the pillar pot up and just got the gauge hanging there with the 2 spade connectors on the end. So this is what I'm talking about. If I plug this in, ignition is off, so the gauge is obviously off. As soon as I turn the ignition on, the gauge lights up. So that's basically how it works. So I've got the gauges mounted in there now. This is the wiring when it's on. I messed up a little bit before and I've got to loop these here, but I'll just start from the start. So I've got the positive, which is the red, and the negative, which is the black back there. And then we've got our actual boost line tapped into here. And then in terms of the EGT gauge, we've just got positive and negative coming from those two there, the red and black one at the back there, and all I've done is just teed them off and then looped them up to the light. So you got your positive and negative there too. And then that connector with the blue, that is for this red cord that I ran down here, and that is for the EGT probe that goes into the dump pipe. And then that's the other one, that other terminal there, that red wire coming down, that's also for the EGT probe as well. Righto, so I've taken the dump pipe off. I've marked where I wanted it, which is here. That I made a mistake. That ended up being too far down. It was going to hit some of the brake lines, whatever is down there. So I've moved it up a bit. That's going to be the spot there. So that's the bung. Basically just going to weld that onto there and happy days. So now I'm just seeing how the actual EGT probe goes together. I've got those 3 fittings on there. Pretty sure this is just like an olive fitting that's going to crush onto the tube to set how far I want it in the exhaust. So I've just marked a little spot. A bit hard to see, but I marked that little spot there. That's how far I want this fitting to go in, so that the rest will be sticking into the exhaust halfway. Then on the wiring on this side, the cable I've ran inside the car, that's got a brown and a red. So the red and red will go together. That'll be the negative. And then I'm going to put the yellow and the brown together, and that'll be the positive. So the dump's back in now. You can see I've got the little sensor EGT probe all in, just cleaned up the weld and just painted it a bit as well. And then on this side, under that black sheath, that's where the connection is. I ended up chopping off the lugs that they had on it, the crimp connections, and I just soldered it just to make it a bit neater. And then I've just kept all that wiring bundled there together just in case I want to move it anywhere else in the engine bay. So the gauges are in for the last time. They sit pretty nicely in the pillar pod here. It doesn't block your vision that much. Like if I'm driving, this is what I see. I know the bonnet's up, doesn't help, but it's just off to the side. I feel like if you had like a third stack on there, then that would be a bit annoying, but the visual's still pretty good. On the top, I've got my boost, and the bottom, the EGT, and I've just got it on the accessories. So as soon as I put the accessories on, hard to see in the day, but they do light up like that. And obviously at night, that white light isn't too bright, which is really nice. So yeah, that's about the end of this video. I think the gauges turned out bloody well, and I'm really happy with them. I'm noticing driving around, I've seen a couple issues, especially with the boost. Not to do with the gauge, but to do with the ZD30 and how it controls boost from stock. So there'll be a video coming basically on how I'm going to fix that issue. And then the EGTs seem to be sitting pretty good. They're around like the 200 to 300, just like normal city driving. And then when you're giving it a bit of a boot, it does really climb up to that like 400, 500 range. But I just think that's a ZD thing. And from the research that I've done, it seems pretty normal, those figures. So it is what it is. So I'll wrap things up here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you got an idea of how I go about putting my gauges into my patrol, and it might help you if you want to do yours. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.